Meryl Streep's scheduled appearance on Good Morning America was intended to be a simple, elegant promotion of her upcoming historical drama, Crown and Ashes. The film, a sweeping exploration of one woman's defiance against corrupt systems in 18th century France, was already generating significant buzz. Meryl, always poised and gracious, had done a series of interviews earlier in the week without incident. But from the moment she stepped onto the GMA set, something felt ... off. She was ushered in during the commercial break wearing a tailored navy blouse and flowing beige trousers, her signature glasses perched delicately on her nose. She exchanged a quick, polite hug with George Stephanopoulos, who offered a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The co-hosts were friendly, if a little stiff. As the cameras rolled and the upbeat theme music faded, George began with the usual pleasantries. Meryl Streep, thank you so much for joining us. Always an honor, he said. Thank you for having me, she replied warmly, her tone gracious but alert. The first few questions were safe. How she chose the role, what drew her to the story, how she approached portraying such a layered character. Meryl, ever the professional, responded with thoughtfulness, referencing the political undercurrents of the script and the way history echoes into the present. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, George made a sharp pivot. You've often spoken out about political leadership in real life. How do you reconcile those convictions with portraying characters who are embedded in or even enable powerful and often oppressive systems? The temperature on set seemed to drop. Meryl tilted her head slightly, her expression still composed, but her eyes locked on his with unmistakable intensity. Well, she began slowly, I think there's an important distinction between portraying a character and endorsing their choices. Isn't that the essence of acting? George pressed on. Yes, but some critics say your roles carry weight far beyond the screen. When someone with your voice plays a royal figure or a corporate power broker, isn't there a risk that you're glorifying what you oppose in real life? A pause. Meryl gave a tight smile, her tone sharpening. George, I've played witches, murderers, journalists, prime ministers. If you believe I'm personally aligned with every character I've portrayed, then I think we need to rethink how we talk about art. The room was silent. Even the co-hosts looked caught off guard. One of them tried to break the tension with a laugh, but it fell flat. I'm simply asking the question, George said. His voice unusually clipped. And I'm simply giving you the answer? Meryl replied. This sounds less like an interview about the film and more like a veiled critique of my character. Behind the cameras, producers were frozen, eyes darting between monitors. The control room's voice crackled in someone's earpiece. Do not cut! Let it roll! Meryl continued, her voice steady but unflinching. If I came here to be interrogated rather than to discuss the work, then maybe this conversation has run its course? George blinked. Are you walking out? She unclipped her mic. I'm choosing not to participate in a conversation that lacks respect. If you want to talk about storytelling, women in history, or the challenges of modern filmmaking, call me. Otherwise, don't waste my time. And with that, she stood elegant and calm, nodded politely to the co-hosts, and walked off set. The studio was stunned. A few gasps were heard. The cameras panned awkwardly as someone hastily cut to commercial. Seconds later, viewers across the country were posting about what they'd just witnessed, and the internet lit up with the first sparks of a viral storm. Outside the Good Morning America studio, a crowd of fans and paparazzi had already formed, most of them expecting to catch a glimpse of Meryl Streep after her segment. What they didn't anticipate was to see her leaving early, head held high, expression unreadable as she slipped on her sunglasses and walked past the cameras without a word. Her assistant followed close behind, murmuring into a phone, trying to coordinate the next steps as chaos exploded online. Back inside, the mood had shifted from tense to panicked. George Stephanopoulos sat rigid in his chair, visibly shaken by how quickly the interview had spiraled out of control. The other hosts tried to recover with forced laughter and awkward segues, but the energy was gone. Even the studio crew looked stunned. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something far more explosive than a celebrity walkout. It was a cultural flashpoint unfolding in real time. Within 20 minutes of the commercial break, the clip of Meryl standing up and leaving was everywhere on TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. Each platform had its own narrative. Some called her a queen for refusing to be cornered. Others accused her of being overdramatic or too sensitive. But most were captivated by the sheer boldness of what she had done. The hashtag Streep Walkout quickly hit the trending charts, followed by hashtag Meryl vs. George, hashtag Respect the Art, and hashtag GMA Gate. As her car pulled away from the studio. Meryl finally spoke not to the press, but to her assistant. "He came from me," she said quietly, still staring out the window. "That wasn't an interview, that was a setup." Her assistant nodded solemnly. "The studio's already called twice. ABC wants to know if you'll issue a clarification." Meryl didn't respond right away. She leaned her head back and closed her eyes. She'd been in the business for decades, dealt with countless interviews, some tough, some even insulting. But this one felt different. It felt personal, and she knew it wasn't just about hurt. It was about how artists were expected to tiptoe through politicized minefields, often punished for expressing convictions while simultaneously chastised for staying silent. Across town. PR teams were scrambling. ABC's senior producers were holding emergency meetings, trying to decide whether to issue a statement or let the dust settle. George himself remained silent, retreating to his office after the show ended. According to one crew member, he looked stunned and embarrassed, though some insiders claimed he was unapologetic and believed he'd just been doing his job. Later that afternoon, Meryl's publicist released a brief, elegant statement to the press. Meryl Streep has always stood for meaningful conversation, respectful dialogue, and the power of storytelling. Today's interview took an unfortunate turn away from those values. She left the set not in anger, but in quiet protest against a tone she found dismissive and inappropriate. She remains proud of her work and welcomes any discussion rooted in sincerity, not spectacle. The statement only fueled more commentary. Prominent actors, directors, and journalists chimed in. Viola Davis posted a cryptic tweet, "Protect your dignity, always." Martin Scorsese called Meryl privately and reportedly told her. Meanwhile, George faced growing backlash. Though he had his defenders mainly among pundits who claimed Meryl was dodging accountability, many viewers saw his line of questioning as aggressive and needlessly provocative. Some pointed out a double standard. Male actors were rarely asked to defend the moral complexity of their roles. Why should Meryl be ? As the days passed, the story didn't fade, it evolved. Think pieces poured in. Media critics debated the role of journalists in celebrity interviews. Was it George's job to ask tough questions, or did he cross a line by editorializing under the guise of inquiry? In the end, the fallout wasn't career-ending for anyone, but it did leave a mark. Meryl's film Crown and Ashes saw an unexpected surge in presale tickets. Fans rallied around her, especially younger generations who praised her for setting boundaries live on air. More importantly, she had reignited a conversation about media responsibility, the expectations placed on public figures, and the dignity of saying no when the tone turns toxic. Weeks later, Meryl was asked in a different interview if she regretted walking out. She smiled. "Not for a second," she said. "There's power in knowing when to speak. And sometimes, there's even more power in walking away."